पीछे अफरासियात के बुजुर्ग हमा वक्त जादूगरों के खुदा सामरी और जमशेद की इबादत करते हैं और उनसे नए नए तहायफ इनाम में पाते हैं। दूसरा दर्जा उस तिलिस्म का है तिलिस्म बातिन, यानी नजरों से छिपा हुआ तिलिस्म। इस तिलिस्म बातिन में अफरासियात और उसके बड़े बड़े अफसर गुजरा वगैरह बैठकर होशरुबा के ऊपर हुकूमत किया करते हैं। तिलिस्म बातिन में जो होता है वो दिखाई नहीं देता, और जो दिख रहा होता है वो होता नहीं। सरकार भी आजकल ऐसी चलती है, समझा? ये तिलिस्म बातिन। आप तिलिस्म जाहिर नजरों के सामने का तिलिस्म, जहां रियाया बराया ताजे आप और हम जैसे मामूली लोग ऑन आर्ट्स कल्चरल फेस्टिवल, इस तरह की फिल्म फेस्टिवल चीजें चलती रहती हैं, जिससे कि आम जनता डिस्ट्रैक्ट है और सरकार की हरफेलियों पर अपनी नजर न रखे।
बेखबर न रुके बेकश आँखों में कोई है कुछ अच्छा नहीं। तेरी याद आएगी मेरे मन में खेलती बेखबर वो सुबह रह गई।
সংসারের জানা সদাই থাকিতাম যে হতে হাইরে জুয়ানি বেজান রহে গঙ্গের সামনে বসিল বাইতে
When we arrived in Varanasi, the river had just retreated after the monsoons. Ganga had left its Himalayan silt on the steps of the ancient ghats. Workers were busy washing away the mounds of mud with sharp water sprays, aimed to get the ghat clean and ready for the festival of Dev Deepavali. But the festival of Varanasi was all around us. It was still going on, as it had been going on for a few millennia and more.
ज़्यादा बेंड करना तो उसको देने से जल्दी बेंड होता है, नरम हो जाता है। थोड़ा पानी डालकर 2-4 दिन 15 दिन पानी डालेगा तो नरम हो जाएगा। आगे लाइन उसको मोड़ लेना और उसके बाद बाहर में 3 का
The boat was to be named Taran Tarini Tarini, the streaming streamer of the streams. Anand's father had chosen the name and was quite proud of it too. Anand wanted Momok's advice regarding the color scheme for the boat, but each suggestion was met with a curious and indifferent nod. We were there to witness the making of the boat, but the deafening hammering of the wood and tin and the sharp noise of the cutter meant that we could make little conversation there. To add to it, Anand's father and the proprietor of the boat had a lot to tell us, but fewer words to express it with. Plus, his mouth was full of chewing tobacco. Through a few words, and mostly by pointing out, he told us that the piece of wood at the front of the boat is the first element to be instituted. The boat is built around it, somewhat like the exposed carcass of a beached whale that is made whole by the workmen before it is deposited on the water. But even before that, the piece of wood must be worshipped, anointed, and be given over to the gods, for its sailing or sinking is a matter that lies in their hands.
विश्व में से पूरे विश्व से आदमी खाली घाटों को जी आते हैं कि भारत में सबसे बड़ा घाट है तो काशी में। भूगति में सबसे प्रथम भगवान शिव इस काशी नगरी को स्वयं भगवान शिव अपने त्रिशूल पर बसाए हैं और बनाए हैं। यहाँ नाश नहीं होता है, बना चीज़ को बना हुआ चीज़ तो नाश तो होना है, जो चीज़ बना हुआ तो नाश होना है। काशी का नाम नाश नहीं होना है।
The Aghori sadhu we met on the boat told us about the tantric rituals and philosophy of his sect that follows Shiva, the god of destruction. They are also looking for a way out of the Tilism Jāhãn, the illusions of the world, towards the realization of a non-dualist existence. The ghats of Banaras are especially dear to them. The river Ganga is said to have descended from the sky, the Milky Way itself. To save the world from the impact of the descent of this celestial river, Shiva caught it in his jata and regulated its flow. With its point of origin concealed within the god of destruction, The Aghori Sadhu said, "The Ganga creates the first and the last ghat of the world." He lent me a secret to Banaras. शक्ति से शिव है, शिव से शव है, और शव से है बनारस. Shakti begets Shiva, Shiva begets the dead, and for the dead there is Banaras. We entered Bihar during the Chhat Puja, a festival dedicated to the god of the sun, who rides his chariot pulled by his 7 horses across the eastern horizon to the west. Chhat is one of the most ancient festivals of India. Its origin is mentioned in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Sita, who is from Mithila, kept this fast for Rama, the hero of Ramayana, and Kunti, the matriarch of the Pandavas, who were the heroes of the Mahabharata, kept this fast for her son Karn, who was fathered by the sun god himself.
जब हम छोटे थे ना तो हमें बहुत क्यूरियोसिटी होती थी कि माँ उस रूम में क्यों चली गई, तो मैं भी जाऊंगी, मैं भी देखूंगी, क्यों नहीं बात नहीं जान, और दूर दूर से डांट डांट के भगा देती थी कि
आपको जाने नहीं दे सकते।
हाँ, हम लोग बच्चे होते थे ना, जैसे तैसे खेलते कूदते पहुंच जाएंगे, तो उनका कोई गेहूँ जो जिससे वो ठेकुआ बनाती हैं, पकवान बनाती हैं, वो सब छू देंगे, हम लोग को दूर रहना है, क्योंकि बोलती थी, डराती थी कि छू दोगे ना तो बहुत बड़ा अनिष्ट हो जाएगा। मतलब बोला जाता है ऐसा कि सूर्य भगवान नाराज हो जाएंगे, कुछ कुछ बॉडी में बीमारी हो जाएगा, कुछ खराब हो जाएगा, इस तरह का डर पैदा होता था। तो हम लोग इतने डर जाते थे ना कि पास ही नहीं फटकते थे कि छठ आ रहा है, बाप रे कोई नहीं जाना है वहाँ पे, बड़े होने तक इस तरह का कठिन था ये, इसको बोला ही जाता था सबसे कठिन व्रत।
The festival, celebrated over 4 consecutive days, comes to its climax on the dusk of the 3rd day and culminates on the dawn of the 4th and the last day. A fair thronged by small traders and artisans from nearby villages and the local adults and children alike crops up around the ghats where people assemble to offer their arag, prayers or offerings, first to the setting sun and then to the rising sun of the next morning. Chhat is observed exactly 5 days after Diwali. It officially marks the onset of winter in East India. But I remembered it the most for the local fair that came to the village every year. Finding myself back here some 20 years later felt like I had stepped into a time machine. The canal, the rituals, the people, all of them seemed familiar. And yet, so much had changed. Nothing seemed as it was, and nothing was as it seemed. Well, this is as good a formula as can be to find your bearings in any Tilism, really. The old houses and shops were replaced by large society buildings. The playgrounds were covered with concrete. The canal, however, had been cleaned up and decorated in the traditional way. And yet, the seasonal carnival had begun to keep track with the new technologies of the world. I couldn't decide if the past I remembered was more real than the present, or whether the present had completely swallowed up that reality and spat out something that was familiar and strange at the same time. The further I went, the deeper my suspicion grew. I followed my instinct towards the furthest end of the fair, but the secret of this Tilism still eluded me. For these 4 days, the Ghats were completely transformed into a magical landscape. But once the festival was over, the beauty that had encased the place vanished just as abruptly. Now the remains of the idols and the festival offerings that were worshipped only a day before flowed down the river and choke its arteries. Like a Tilism, it lasts for an instant. Its end is akin to the bursting of a bubble. Insignificant, cataclysmic. There was once a jungle, dark as a monsoon cloud and overgrown with trees of beauty, the Sundari, whose roots poke out of the ground, whose leaves, like waxy plastic, bend and do not tear, whose thorny branches get entangled with other branches of Sundari trees, and the river streams not around other streams flowing out to the sea, while the backward flow of the sea swells up the river. All of this in a jungle called Othero Bhatir Desh, the land of 18 tides. The boat took us to the edge of the Sundarbans and skirted the borders of the great mangrove jungle. We plied over the big river and from our safe perch observed its arteries snake off into the dense jungle. Momuk's hand reached out towards them, in longing, but also knowing that the other shore was inaccessible. Later, Momuk expressed his desire to return to the village another day. It is a desire to be in proximity to this other world of the Sundarbans, an other world of tigers, trees, and the many forms of the river that we glimpse and move across. Our interaction is limited to our desire of breaking this boundary. It is limited by our imagination and the resources we have at our disposal. For now, we content ourselves by keeping to its edges. Somehow, we feel, this boundary must dissolve. He fishes a leaf out of the trunk of the river and keeps it in his sketchbook. We move on.
देखो बेटे लिखा हुआ लजीना मन राजा के नाम प्रियदर्शी, यहाँ लिखा हुआ चंचल रहिए, यहाँ कर्म करिए। और ये देखिए संख लिपि है जिसको वर्ल्ड में पढ़ाई है। वहाँ जाइए चबूतरा है बेटी, बैठिए।
The caretaker of the Barabar caves is an unusual guy, but in a very usual way. We visited the caves on a Sunday, and he obliged us by opening the caves for a small fee and, of course, a free guided tour that he was not trained to give. He insisted that these were the oldest man-made caves in the world. He was certain that its reflective walls, polished to perfection by unknown hands from another era of geological history, are no less than a wonder of the world. He convinced us that the rock face of the cliff on which the caves were carved resembled the shape of a crocodile from one end and that of a whale from the other. We tried to follow his eyes, expecting the rocks to reveal the shapes he suggested. But he was not a good conjurer.
अब बाहर से देखो भेल मछली की तरह बेटा, इसमें बैठने के चबूतरा है ध्यान लगाने के लिए जी। ऐसी फाइल है भैया, जितने गर्मी करेंगे उतने ठंडी है, जितने ठंडी करेंगे उतनी गर्मी। वर्ल्ड में ऐसा नहीं है, मैन मेड।
He was still the ruler of his domain, a sorcerer no less, who could give you entry into the Tilism of Barabar or keep you out of it. The caves carved in 3rd century BCE under the aegis of the Maurya Emperor Ashoka were used by Ajivika monks for prayer and meditation. They also served as inspiration for Foster's A Passage to India. Its echoes send Miss Adela Quested into a hallucinatory daze. In a parallel to the novel, Foster visited the caves after his love for Sayyid Ras Masood, an educationist and grandchild of the reformist Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, was rejected. Masood advised him that he should visit the Kawa Dol hill on his last day before he left India. Masood prophesied for Foster, "You will write a novel about this." The Kawa Dol gets its name from a fantastic image. The rock at the top of the lonely hill is said to be poised in such a manner that even a crow sitting on it will make it rock. It is indeed a large crow swing upon a hilltop. Even fierce storms have not been able to dislodge. Nothing other than that suggests anything out of the ordinary in the small settlement around Kawa Dol. But on closer inspection of the rocks, we found the remains of an ancient Buddhist vihara, along with rock-cut reliefs of some Hindu gods and goddesses from a long-forgotten chapter in our collective memory. We had come to the Kavadol chasing a strange echo. When the azan rings out from the speakers of a nearby mosque, the sound waves, reflecting off the caves and boulders of this rocky hill, intersect in such a way that it produces the effects of an animal's howl. While I was convinced that these were intersecting echoes of the azan, others were not. We decided to confirm our theory with the caretaker of a local mazar. Can I ask what these howling sounds are? Are these the echoes of the azan? No. It's the jackals who live in the abandoned caves and under the rocks of the hill, the caretaker answered. And the jackals are reacting to the azan? Yes, he replied. It is perhaps the only place in the world where jackals also respond to the call to prayer and give the azan alongside human beings. Before we entered Mania Sharif, a medieval era Sufi shrine in Bihar, we were warned by a local in our small shop that we should not fall for the tricks of the Bhagats and the Gunis, the witch doctors who are constantly on the lookout for easy prey here. We had come here chasing a strange incident. A wedding party had entered the subterranean tunnels that begin from Mania Sharif and open up beyond the shores of the Son River. Have been lost in these tunnels that open up somewhere in the Son Basin. And there's a popular story that at a certain point there was a wedding procession that was staying around in this area, and the groom's party actually came around, and then one person went in and disappeared, then another person followed and then disappeared, and another person followed and disappeared, and none of them ever came out. So then ultimately they had to put a gateway over here to block all kinds of entrance. Several people repeated this tale to me, but we only found a locked gate concealing some steps that disappeared into the darkness below. Upon further inquiry, we realized that Mania Sharif was popular for other reasons too. Those who were possessed by evil spirits, jinns, or other maladies came here to find release from such otherworldly afflictions. Witchcraft accusations remain a sordid reality in many parts of North and East India. In states like Bihar, where caste system and inequitable distribution of land remains an issue, witchcraft accusations are often directed towards widowed women and single daughters in order to wrest their property through illegal and often violent means. The witch doctors are central to such accusations, since they are the authority who sentence a woman to suffering and, in some cases, even to death. But witch doctors are also pivotal to the lives of several families who have no recourse to medical or psychiatric help. In a world where one does not possess the vocabulary to express psychological stress and its potential harms, the witch doctors provide for alternate remedies. As is often the case in these parts of the world, what seems evil is also a kind of help. But is it enough? Like any tilism that is created by the ilm, that is knowledge and sahiri or enchantment of a powerful sorcerer, Fatehpur Sikri also possesses a similar story of genesis. The legend goes that Emperor Akbar, the third monarch in the lineage of the Mughals, having conquered the world, could not conquer his fate. He was childless, and with no one to pass his legacy on to, he was also dismayed. Having visited the living and the dead saints of his kingdom, he finally made the pilgrimage to the hut of a little known Sufi saint, Hazrat Salim Chishti, who had made his home on a lonely mountain top that overlooked an arid landscape dotted with a few villages here and there. The saint blessed the emperor and prophesied that a son will be born to him. But he also put one condition to go with it. The emperor must dedicate his firstborn son to the Sufi once he was born. The emperor agreed to this condition. Lo and behold, he was indeed blessed with a son. And now, when the moment came to dedicate him to the saint, the emperor was troubled. How could he part with his newborn child? The solution to this dilemma came to the emperor in a dream. A city rose out of the dust and grime of the mountain till its walls and lofty doorways touched the sky. The city became his dream, and his dream became Fatehpur Sikri. Within 15 years, the sorcerer emperor had made a tilism rise from the earth, complete, imperial, and a prominent center of civilization in the East. How then did Fatehpur Sikri came to be deserted within the first 4 years of its life? How did this tilism break? Of the several answers to this question, one stands out as the simplest and the most urgent. It ran out of water. If on a Thursday afternoon you visit the Firoz Shah Kotla, the ruins of a 14th century fort in the heart of modern and bureaucratic Delhi, you will also be a part of a strange scene that has been unfolding here every week since the last 50 years or so. There is a popular belief that the Emperor of the Jinns holds his court here. He listens to the pleas of his subjects and offers hope and promise of relief to them. It echoes the mix of the Persian tradition of shikwa, an official complaint addressed to the divine authority, and the Hindu-Islamic expectations of a just monarch who must listen to the complaints of their subject at any hour of the day. The faryadis, or the pleaders, come with their applications and leave them tucked into its walls and strewn across its corridors. The language of the state has entered their pleas. Some applications are also daubed with itr, a perfume to attract the spirits. Even here, one desires their files to move up the ladder swiftly. The other applicants bring their individual issues that are a mix of personal and professional problems. They tell of job loss, alcoholism, domestic abuse, unrequited love, interfaith and intercaste marriages, and of the various other desires of the human heart. Women far outnumber the men at Kotla. It is women who plead on the behalf of men too. Besides being an alternative to the state machinery, the jinn saints are also enmeshed in a familiar relationship to the Faryadis. They are perceived as the fathers of these women who returned to their Maika, their parents' house, seeking help and guidance in troubling times.
एक लोग दिखा लेना चाहिए सरकार को कि एक आई थी बुरी और उन्हें सब कुछ करा अंदर घुस के इसे बंद ही करवा देना फिर टाइम खराब आ जाएगा तो वैसे ही आने वाला दुनिया में और खराब आ जाएगा।
5 महीने से शादी के टाइम हूँ ये समझ करके ये समझ करके अगर बाहर रहता तो बिना बाबा के को मैं रख लेता वो जावी वो जहर है मेरे जवान में नानी के रूप में वो ताकत है रे बिना बाबा अभी मैं गंगे शकर बाबा के मरीज के भी करके पड़ा हुआ
हाजिरी पे
मुझे एक बार वो करके दे बोली तो तुझे भी पानी मांगेगा तो पानी नहीं।
It is said that unlike a Sufi saint, when you petition a jinn, you must also be prepared to pay a dear price for it. And yet, the thronging crowd at Kotla includes many who have been coming here every week since several years and attest to the miraculous nature of this place. On conditions of strict anonymity, a woman told us that she had petitioned Nanne Mia, a jinn saint who inhabits these imperial ruins, to find her a suitable husband for her daughter. She had made this plea 4 times earlier. For her other 4 daughters, she had been blessed by Nanne Mia. Today she was here for her youngest daughter. Another woman pleaded for the survival of her 6th and last generation, where 5 of them had already perished. There is a constant tussle between the Faryadis who come to Kotla as a last resort and the ASI, the Archaeological Survey of India, that is engaged in the preservation of the monument as a part of the Indian heritage. They stop and frisk the visitors at the gates and keep a constant vigil that incense sticks and earthen lamps are not used or left in the walls of the fort. They have also locked the several corridors and ancient chambers that were once the site of worship and communion with the spiritual realm for the people. Even the steps leading up to the Ashokan pillar, the 2000-year-old edict of just rulership that is known amongst the Faryadis as the Lat Wale Baba, is inaccessible to the general public. Only the mosque remains, as it has remained since the last 700 years, still in service.
आज जो साउथ ईस्ट एशियन कंट्रीज़ है वो लोग बुद्धिज़्म को हमसे ज़्यादा बढ़ के दिखाते हैं कि हम लोग बहुत ज़्यादा मानते हैं, फॉलो करते हैं, लेकिन उनको मिला कहाँ से? इनके यहाँ तो धर्म नाम का कोई चीज़ ही नहीं था। ये तो जब इन्वेटर्स आए आपके नॉर्थ वेस्ट से ऊपर से इस तरफ आए तो यहाँ सेंट्रल इंडिया में जो बुद्धिज़्म को फॉलो करने वाले लोग, मेरा जहाँ तक मानना है कोई भी जो वस्तु होती है जब वो अपने डेवलपमेंट के पीक पे आ जाता है, जैसे हमारा बॉडी ही ले लीजिए, जब वो ग्रोथ होते होते एक हाइट आता है ना, उसके बाद फिर वो नहीं बढ़ता, ये नहीं कि लास्ट तक बढ़ता ही चला जाएगा, ये रुक जाता है 5.5 इंचेस के फीट पे। फिर उसके बाद क्या होता है, डिक्लाइन होना शुरू होता है। वो जैसे हम बूढ़ा होते हैं तो बॉडी धीरे धीरे यहाँ से पैंटों के झुकने लगती है, मतलब हम छोटे होने लगते हैं। तो इसी तरह ये बात धर्म पे भी लागू होता है। जब हर कोई धर्म, जब सनातन अपने पीक पे था तो उसके वजह से लोगों में प्राइड हुआ, घर में नीगो आया, उसमें तरह तरह की गलत चीज़ें स्टार्ट हुई, तो उसके दमन के लिए बुद्धिज़्म आया। फिर बुद्धिज़्म जब पीक पे पहुंचा तो वही सारी चीज़ें, जिन चीज़ों को नेगलेक्ट करके बुद्धिज़्म को बनाया गया था, वही से सारी चीज़ें बुद्धिज़्म में ला दी गई। फिर बुद्धिज़्म धीरे धीरे ख़त्म होने लगा। तो सबका एक टाइम आता है,
हर रिवॉल्यूशन का एक,
हाँ, रिवॉल्यूशन सब में आता है। तो उस तरह से सब में ये चलती गई। अब आज के डेट में डिपेंड करता है हमारे आप के ऊपर कि हम कैसे इन सारी चीज़ों को एक साथ लेके चलें।
It's a strange contradiction. Buddha gave his first sermon at Sarnath. It came to be known as the turning of the wheel of Dharma. He introduced the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path as a way to Nirvana, the ultimate cessation of suffering and release from the circle of samsara. The Dhamma Chakra, or the Wheel of Dharma, became the symbol of his teachings and also a way to break out of the Tilism Jāhãn, the enchantments of the world. The wheel was adopted by the newly independent Indian state on the 26th of January 1950, the day India became a sovereign, secular, democratic republic. But where do we stand now? The Ashokan pillar is a reminder of a continuous and continuously changing cultural and social milieu of North India. Emperor Ashoka's message of justice, peace and brotherhood, inscribed on its surface more than 2000 years ago, had remained undeciphered till the 19th century. In the meantime, their otherworldly presence became occasion of various myths and folk legends. One amongst them is the veneration of the pillar as a lat, a stick of justice and uprightness, but also one that works as a nail holding the world in its place. At Kotla, it is also the abode of a jinn saint, the Lat Wale Baba, the one who fulfills wishes but also makes sure that the lat remains in its place and the earth keeps spinning on its axis. The Dastango, or the storyteller of the unending Dastans, speaks of the Tilism as a fantastic realm ruled by sorcerers supreme. All the rules of reality are made to stand on their head here. The Sufi philosophy offers an allegorical understanding of the Tilism. From their perspective, the world itself is a Tilism, a realm of illusions and powerful mirages of desires and longing for material pleasures. There is another reality, one that is divine in its essence and can only be realized through the zikr of the great Creator. Those who seek to break out of the Tilism that we call our world must listen to their heart, which functions as the tablet of destiny. The secret of breaking the Tilism Jāhãn is inscribed upon it. The percept is simple. Follow thy heart, and the illusions that surround you will fall apart one by one till you come face to face with the ultimate truth. The ghats, the parts, and the lats we travelled through, and the people we met along the way, were the evidence of a cultural confluence that permeates our lived reality. I shall not narrate a familiar tale of acceptance or rejection. The Dastans tell us that not all Tilisms are realms of evil. They don't function as acts of kufr that needs demolishing. We travelled through only a few amongst countless such Tilisms that are no less than worlds within our worlds. They must remain. These worlds of enchantment, these tilisms, are necessary after all. If our worlds should survive, they must survive alongside.
भाई रे जमाने की खाक छानी बड़ी, तब जाके हमरी नजरिया तुमसे लड़ी। भाई रे जमाने की खाक छानी बड़ी, तब जाके हमरी नजरिया तुमसे लड़ी। न जाओ अब न जाओ, मांगो जो चाहो, न जाओ अब न जाओ, मांगो जो चाहो।